Why do I keep posting your kids on the internet?
When you see girls this age today, they're literally wearing crop tops, little shorts, high heels, fake long hair.
If you're a parent, you have to stop posting your kids on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook for their safety.
But the very least you can do is not post content of your child that are seeking out.
Keep your kids off the internet. Protect their childhood.
Once upon a time, dressing your child meant finding something durable, comfortable, and maybe a little cute. Now, kids' clothing looks like it skipped childhood altogether. Straight from sippy cups to streetwear, mini crop tops for 6-year-olds, slogan tees that read like adult sarcasm, outfits that scream runway ready, but whisper nothing about being a kid. Some say it's just fashion, others say it's harmless self-expression, but there's a growing number of parents, educators, and even psychologists asking, has it gone too far? In this video, we're deep diving into how kids are being dressed by brands, by influencers, and by us, and what this might be doing to their sense of self, safety, and childhood. Because if nobody knows how to dress kids anymore, maybe we've already lost the plot. Hi babes, my name's Taja, mother of twins, lover of luxe things, and your guide for showing up with style and intention. Not too long ago, kids' clothes were designed for play, not for likes. Fashion was fun, messy, even awkward because kids were allowed to be kids. Fast forward to now and it's a whole different world. If you guys are not new here, then you would know that I'm a mother of 3. I have 3 boys, with the oldest being 7, and so I think I've got quite a bit of experience in dressing kids. And an ongoing trend that I've been seeing is a shift in what's even available to buy as kids wear from stores. I'm definitely a parent who likes to dress their kids as kids, and I encourage them to be creative with their clothing. Usually, especially for the twins, I'm the one that's picking their clothes, but for my older son, I do let him make some choices about what he wears, of course depending on the occasion. However, even I have noticed in shopping for my children that there seems to be this ongoing attempt to adultify children and make them look like little adults, which I think on occasion can be really, really cute.
Why is it a crop top? They're gonna say it's a boxy tee. Baby, this is a crop top. I don't got time. I'm so sick. I'm so sick of it.
But as with everything, there seems to be an extreme end of this trend where parents are dressing their children as adults without editing the taste level so that it's not only practical but appropriate for the child's age. When I was a child during the 2000s and late 1990s, I don't think that this conundrum was so widespread. Depending on your economic background, I think the ultimate aim for most parents was just that their child was dressed appropriately and dressed comfortably. But I think that the level that we have reached to now in 2025 is not only about looking cute or looking nice, looking well put together, looking comfortable, and is more about social media, looking like an adult, getting attention. The attention seeking as it relates to adults is totally out of control. And at this point, I think it is absolutely because attention, especially on social media, has now become currency. So everybody is seeking out attention in an attempt to make money. And unfortunately, I think the kids have got a bit intertwined in this strategy, and on many occasions they are being exploited, ultimately to their detriment.
A new investigation looks at the disturbing world of so-called kidfluencers and the moms who run their accounts.
Posting content of girls can be lucrative. Instagram makes it possible to have paid monthly subscribers, and kids apparel brands will pay thousands of dollars for a single post of a kid modeling, say, their dance leotards. But what might seem like innocent photos to a mom may read differently to a man or a pedophile.
We have seen the rise of mini influencers and Instagram kids, children, if you think of like the McClure twins, children who we have essentially seen grow up on social media, and they get loads of attention because they're children who are maybe dressed in a particular way, or they do particular dances or performances, or they act, or they just style clothes. I actually have seen quite a few child-based fashion accounts that are absolutely fine. They're dressing the children in an age-appropriate way. Maybe they're just giving them a bit of extra style or mix-matching colors, or allowing the kids to be creative. However, I think because most of the time, if you are, for example, a 7-year-old and your parents have you making clothing content, the chances of the viewers of that content also being 7-year-olds is very slim. If you are making your children dress up and you're recording them, chances are are the main viewers of that content are going to be adults. I haven't seen the analytics or the data from these accounts, but I'm going to bet that when they dress their children in a more adult-like way, it gets more attention.
This account has reached 17.2 million followers, and it's really concerning what's going on. So this account got famous off of two things. These mommy and me dress up videos in which they do trendy matching outfits like this, and then her videos where she does when my mom dresses me for something versus when my grandmother dresses me for something. The kind of point being that the mom dresses the child very trendy, and then the grandma dresses the child more like a traditional how you dress a child. A few of the outfits that the mom has put her in have been a little scandalous, and just the comments in general on these videos have been getting really concerning. Keep in mind also this account, 98% of the videos are just the child, and they have millions and millions of views, shares, and creepy comments.
And we've discussed this before here, but being successful on social media very much relies on you being able to identify what is resonating with your viewers and making more of that. And so if I have created an account for my child, and when I'm dressing them up like a baby elephant with Wellington boots on, right, nobody's really paying attention, because of course that's normal, in my opinion anyway, a normal way to dress a young child. But when you dress them like an adult, they get more attention. You're more likely to do more content where you're dressing your child in an adult way. And particularly for young girls, I've noticed that there are many content creators that have their girl children dressed more provocatively. And I think the origin story for this issue very much stems from child stars. If you think of like Disney child stars, child actors, you know, the Hannah Montana, Macaulay Culkins of the world, who have been able to make money from a very, very young age, and that has carried them into adulthood. And I think that this has ultimately led to many parents exploiting their children online without the same level of protection that the children in the celebrity industry may have had. And we could argue that those children didn't have enough protections either.
A new survey shared exclusively with ITV News found that in the UK, 57% of marketing professionals don't have formal guidelines in place to protect a child's privacy within content, instead placing trust in parents to manage it. 62% of parent influencers don't involve their child in participation decisions, allowing them to say no or limiting time on camera, while 47% of parent influencers are concerned their child may later regret being in the public eye without understanding the implications at a young age.
The internet at this point is completely unregulated as it pertains to making content that involves your children. And so I've seen many creators who maybe have an account that is mainly based around their child or dressing their child, and in the comments people are saying to them, you know, I don't think your child is dressed appropriately. The outfit's nice, but maybe a bit too adult, maybe a bit too provocative for a child who's maybe 5. And then the parent will rebuttal and say, well, it's my child, I can do what I want, I can dress my child how I want. If it's not hurting anyone, what's the problem? And I think that this is definitely a talking point that in 20 years we're going to be revisiting, right? When these children are full-blown adults and they realize that their parents had them online dressed provocatively for compensation that they may or may not have seen, I think we are going to have a problem. I do think in 2025, this obsession is being critiqued more and more. You know, the question is being asked about, why are we lauding these people who a lot of the time maybe aren't good people or are not as talented as we may have thought they were? Celebrity kids are still being used as style icons, and Northwest is a really good example of this. Northwest is of course beautiful. However, she is 12. And there have been ongoing conversations around how her parents are dressing her. I think these conversations are always quite difficult because there is a fair and reasonable perspective that is, these are children, and so there shouldn't be a public space in which strangers are discussing the appearance of children. However, the problem that stems from making a choice to exploit your children publicly is that once they're in the public domain, they're open to discussion, which is why I understand and even respect celebrities who make a conscious choice to remove their children from the spotlight, because maybe taking Northwest out, dressing her up, having her featured on songs, all of these things means that whether it's right or wrong, what happens is she becomes a topic of conversation. And she was recently out with her mum wearing a shorter skirt and a corset top.
The internet is dragging Kim Kardashian over what her daughter Northwest had on during their family trip to Rome. The internet wasted no time sounding off. Fans flooded the comments calling the outfit inappropriate and disturbing for her age. A lot of people felt like Kim crossed the line by letting her 12-year-old daughter wear something that screams 22-year-old fashion influencer.
And I'm going to reiterate that she's 12. Right? I do understand that how you choose to dress your children is a personal choice, but I don't think that sexiness or provocativeness should be associated with children in any way at all. And so if I were to have a 12-year-old, she absolutely would not have on a corset. However, I do think there is some nuance in that when you are the child of a celebrity, you can sometimes also become a brand. And as I understand it, not only with Northwest, but there are many celebrity children who have their names registered as businesses and they are being pushed by their parents as a brand. They do acting roles or pop-ups on people's streams or things like that, which means that they are a brand, and therefore there is a bit of a blurred line around, okay, if you've got a child who has a personal brand, how do you dress them to align with their brand? And I of course think that there is always a way that this can be done in a child-friendly way. If I were to give Northwest's parents the benefit of the doubt, a lot of the time she does have on outfits that I do think are appropriate and do align with whatever kind of brand they're trying to help her to grow. However, I don't think adding a shirt to the outfit that she had on underneath the corset would have hurt anybody, and I don't think it would have taken away from the look or anything like that. So I do think that there was a way that her parents could have made this outfit more appropriate for a child. Also, celebrity children are often outside with security. They often have access to protections or services that the average child does not have. But unfortunately, I think there are many parents who see children like Northwest and aspire to have that for their own child without considering all of the complexities of that choice and what it might ultimately mean for their child. Social media has also played a really large role in this shift. If you listen to anyone talk about the most successful channels on YouTube, most of them are either directed to children, so content made for children, or content made by children, which on one hand I can understand because I have children and I can see their habits, right? They watch something that they like and then they want to watch it 500 times after that. So if you're somebody who's making content for views or you're making content to build a community, it's really easy to do that with children because they're quite habitual, right? They fall in love with Coco Melon, that is all they want to watch.
My name is Nastia. I'm 10 years old.
You have 318 million subscribers. That's more than the population of the USA.
Hello. Дубль. Окей, давай еще раз. Nasty's channel, it's a different level, it's top level. If you want to be on YouTube's top, you need to make this kind of production.
Is there anything else that you would like to say? I don't know, just smile on camera.
But then on the other hand, there are loads of predators online, guys. I mean, there's loads of predators everywhere, but particularly online. And YouTube acknowledged that when they decided to restrict the comments on content that is made for children, because weirdos were watching content that included children and making inappropriate comments or trying to get in contact with the child. I've even heard of more recently cases where people have taken child content and used AI to adjust what that child might be doing. And so there are loads of risks that come with exposing your children online, full stop, but especially exposing your kid online dressed like an adult. And a lot of the time the approach taken by parents is that if you're able to look at a child and not be able to focus on the fact that it's a child, no matter how the child is dressed, then you are the problem. And on one hand, I agree. In the ideal world, no one would look at a child, no matter how that child is dressed, and not just see a child. But unfortunately, we don't live in the ideal world, and there are absolutely people who target child-based fashion accounts for reasons outside of just wanting to look at their outfits or just wanting to get inspiration for their outfits.
The likelihood that your children's photos and videos are downloaded onto a stranger's computer is very high. So can you just imagine, for an influencer with thousands or millions of followers, how many strangers have their kids' photos and videos downloaded to their computer?
And in my opinion, the duty of the parent is to parent their child, taking into consideration the real world dynamics and not the ideal world dynamics. And overexposure of children online leads to real consequences, not just fashion critique.
You have to protect your children from all the crazy stuff in this world. There are so many pedophiles in this world. Please stop putting your babies on the internet. And stop exploiting your baby for views. That is so weird.
There have been several academic studies and papers that have looked into how mature or sexualized dressed appearance or related exposure affect children. A study conducted in 2016 titled "Little Girls in a Grown-Up World: Exposure to Sexualized Media, Internalization of Sexualized Messages and Body Image in 6 to 9-year-old Girls" found that there was a positive correlation between exposure and the internalization of sexualized messages and negative body image. And this negative effect doesn't only impact very young children, it also has an effect on teens too. There aren't as many studies around how mature dress affects boys, which actually I would like to see more of. However, the overall consensus from most of these studies is that exposure to sexualized or mature style clothing can lead children to internalize ideals about appearance that are often negative. How children are dressed also affects how they are perceived by others, especially children who are dressed in mature styles. We all want the best for our kids, for them to be confident, expressive, and free to explore who they are. But somewhere along the way, we stopped asking whether the clothes they wear are really for them or for us. When a 7-year-old is dressed like a 17-year-old influencer, when fashion becomes performance instead of play, we have to stop and ask, what are we really teaching them? Let kids be kids. Let them climb, build, discover, and feel safe doing it. Dressing like an adult can wait. Childhood can't.